Okay, thank you, Pamela. So no, I'm delighted to be here this afternoon. As Pamela said, I'm an ex-Brunel student, so very proud of Brunel and proud to be asked back, I guess. So can't have done too much wrong, I guess. So yes, I just wanted to share my journey with you, really, right from the start to where I am now. Maybe you guys can give me some advice on where I've gone wrong along the way, or some pointers, maybe a shoulder to cry on, and but maybe I can impart a few thoughts that maybe help you on your PhD journey as well, I guess. Before I get started, can I just ask who's just starting? Who's in their first year of PhD? Just one person? Is that it? So who? And actually, not supposed to ask what year people are at, are you? That's the cardinal sin. So who's writing up at the moment? Okay, that's 5 or 6. So the rest are in that sort of middle phase of whatever we call the middle phase. Okay, that's useful to know. Would it be useful for you to know a bit about me at the start? I mean, just would that help? So okay, let me just show you this. So yeah, Michael Anaman. That's me in my doctoral regalia there with my mum, wife, and I've got 2 young girls, Ella and Naomi. They're here and there. They occupy a big part of my time at the moment. They're almost 8 and almost 5 now. And that's me actually all the way back many years ago in Yorkshire on a tricycle. Apparently I must have liked Paddington Bear, 'cause I've got Paddington on my t-shirt. And I think I'm rocking the socks with the sandals look. I'm not sure if that was fashionable back in the 70s, but that's me. So I guess in terms of my background, I guess come from really quite humble beginnings, really. So I was born in the UK, but my parents are both from Ghana, so I'm a proud Ghanaian. I will just, I guess probably go on to the next slide, really, to give you a view of sort of where I schooled. So born in Yorkshire, went to a very humble comprehensive up in Yorkshire called Outward Grange. It's now an academy, so I think it's doing quite well now, but at the time I went to it, it's quite a bog standard comprehensive. I got to A-levels, struggled with A-levels a little bit, to be honest. I failed in the second year, so I had to go back and retake and think about my life and what I wanted to do. Then if something clicked, I think I had a good, one particular tutor, very clicked with, got me back focused, and as a result of that, I went to do a business degree at Aston Business School. So I did a 4-year course with a 1-year placement at KPMG Management Consulting. After that, I did another year out, and I travelled around a little bit. And then I got interested in computers, not from a sort of programming perspective, but I liked the idea of what they could do. And I was interested in economics and politics, and I found a course at the London School of Economics doing information systems with a bit of a political dimension, with a bit of an economic dimension as well. So I did that for a year, and I enjoyed that. And then you'll see that I attended Brunel, so I came quite a circuitous route to get to Brunel, and I'll go on to that in a second now. I guess when I finished the LSE, I decided what I wanted to do, and I thought, well, I actually better start working now. I better start earning some money. All those student loans, I need to sort of pay them back. And I joined the Unilever Graduate Development Scheme, and great company. They threw me all around the different bits of the UK. They felt I was a bit soft at one stage. I did some work in Kingston and in Kent, but they sent me back up to a factory site in Yorkshire to manage the IT systems in a factory with sort of quite tough, burly factory workers, so that toughened me up a little bit from a management perspective. I had a great boss at Unilever who moved on. He called me up one day saying, there's this new industry called, well, it's sort of telephones, but they're mobile, and you can take them anywhere, put them in your pockets, and I think it's going to be a big thing. And there's a company called Orange. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but I'd love you to come and work with me. And I thought, well, it sounded quite interesting at the time. So I moved to Bristol and joined Orange as they were at the time. They're now EE, I believe, and they've gone through various incantations. So I joined them, and that, again, I got more interested in data and networks, and that was quite useful and quite helpful. I did 5 years there, then went on to work for 3. Again, I sort of was in a permanent role at Orange, and then I sort of went contracting, so I've been a serial contractor ever since. Worked for a company called Mobile Broadband Network Limited, so they're the company that managed the converged network for a lot of the mobile providers at the moment. It's become uneconomic for each mobile provider to have their own network, so they club together and share the infrastructures. That's been really useful. This is my time working at KPMG doing some public sector consulting. And I did, when I worked for Unilever, I did some marketing as well. They sort of throw you into the different functions, so accounts, commercial, marketing, and I did some work trying to sell Vaseline lip therapy. But I'll let you make your own jokes about my work with Vaseline. I won't go there. But I guess in all my work experience, I thought actually there is something in data, there's something in information, there's something liberating about the use of information. Being from Africa as well, I was thinking actually it's a way in which economies in different nations can maybe get a bit of a level playing field by harnessing it and using it. And there was a chap here, I'm not sure if he's still here actually, Dr. David Lees. I'm a martial artist, so I did Aikido with him, and I used to talk to him about my work. He said, oh, you might want to come and talk to a few people at Brunel. And one day he convinced me to come over, and I met Mark Lysett, who's, the Professor Mark Lysett. I sort of worship him. He sort of really helped me through my PhD. And, yes, somehow convinced me to do a PhD. I'm not sure, does anyone recognise where this is? Not a great picture. I think this is this building, isn't it? This is the sort of car park here. So for me, this is where the magic happens. And I guess with all my experience of a lot of the consumer organisations I work with, like Orange and Unilever, and with information, I thought I had this sort of struggle with customer experience. And I know we talked about social media and customer experience in one of the sessions before. And I thought there must be a way in which, how do we work out whether customers are having a bad experience or a good experience? Maybe if I can throw it out to you guys, how would you assess whether a group of customers are having a good experience or a bad experience? What do you guys think? How would you go about trying to assess that? You'd ask them, okay? So you ask them. What do you think are some of the perils or the problems with asking customers what their experience is like? Say again? They didn't say something? What are the perils?
It depends when you ask them.
Okay, so there's a time aspect of it. So that's one of the aspects. Anything else?
You might only get the negative things because they kind of stay in your brain.
So you might only get the negative things. You might not get the full range of the experience. Conversely, you might just get the positive things as well. I mean, if you were to do exit polls in the States and you're asking people whether they'd vote for different Republican nominees, whether it's Ted Cruz or Trump, how many people do you think would actually put their hand up and say, yes, I'm definitely going to vote for Donald Trump? You probably wouldn't get many, even if they thought they would, because you do get that sort of survey bias. So I thought it's a bit of an imperfect way in trying to gauge what an experience the customers are having. So I thought, so this was the sort of one of the fundamental parts of my PhD. Now, how do you measure experience? How do you gauge it? And I thought, okay, there's a problem with surveys, there's a problem with asking customers. What sort of scale could you use? I'm not sure if people have come across a net promoter scale. You guys familiar with it? Basically, where you ask a customer, would they on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend the product or the company to? And it's important that it's a friend or a colleague. It's people that would come back to you and say, hold on a minute, you said that this thing was a good thing, and it's a crock of whatever. So you ask, it's about whether you'd recommend something to a friend or colleague. And it's 0 to 10, and it's not linear in the sense that the detractors are 0 to 6. So if you're scoring something 6 out of 10, you're not really an advocate for that product. If you're 7 and 8, you're sort of in the middle, a bit wishy-washy. And it's only when you get all the way up to 9 and 10 that you're actually promoting and you're an advocate for the product. So given what I was saying before about how asking customers is maybe there are some pitfalls in that, I thought actually, is there a way in which organizations already have the data as to whether customers are having a good experience or not? And I've done lots of work with mobile telecoms companies, and I thought, well, actually, maybe one route would be, how often do they call up and complain? So if you were able to sort of get a feel for which customers are calling up and complain, that might be one of the factors. We know with mobile coverage that it's not ubiquitous all over the country. You've got some black spots, some good spots. So if we knew that customers were in a particularly dodgy spot, maybe they're having a bad experience. Maybe you'd look at what type of handset they have. So certain handsets are great, certain handsets are poor. So I thought, actually, if you know all this information, could you actually build an experience profile for that customer? And if you could, what would you do with it? So I'm now going to show one of the slides that you're not supposed to show in a presentation where it's, you know when you're told not to have an overcomplicated slide, it's too busy, people can't read it. This is that slide. But it's the only slide I could sort of find to sort of encapsulate the whole of my PhD, I guess. So I was just taking those thoughts of organizations know whether you're having a good experience or not. They've got the data on it. Okay, so if you've got that, what could you do with it? Well, actually, if you could, so I did all my, it was action research, but that's my methodology in terms of how I got through my PhD. Did all my reading, all those sorts of things, but effectively I've built a model that said, like, these are the components of what a good experience is, and various weightings. So not all of them have the same weighting, there are various different weightings. Then I thought, well, actually, if you add in there, are we all equal? We'd like to say we're all equal. Are customers all equal? Are customers all equal? Why not? Why are customers not all equal? You're shaking your head there. Why aren't all customers equal? Resource, right. What about the money?
We don't all earn the same amount. So
Okay.
we probably have different price points.
Different price points. And also, you probably have certain customers that maybe spend a lot more money with you or less. So I've been working in commercial organisations, so we're people in business. So I thought, actually, do you want to have the same response to people? It's a nice philosophy to say you treat all customers equally. But in real life, when push comes to shove, if certain customers are higher value, would you treat them differently? Again, in the mobile industry, would you give them a free handset if they were really complaining and they were spending £200 a month for you? You might do. So I thought, actually, so if you could work out what experience a customer's having, get a feel for their value, and actually build a system then that would then automatically suggest different actions for different customer types. And that's effectively what I did, really. The first stage of my research was gathering the data, building the model, and the second stage was building that model, actually putting it in place, and having those actions off the back of that. And also then washing that data against what really happened in a telco. So I was trying to work out how much impact I would have on churn, for example. If I could improve the experience, could I have some kind of impact on churn? And luckily, I was able to sort of draw out that I think it was about a couple of % impact the model would have on churn. And when you've got millions of customers, if you can impact churn by 2%, then you're probably onto something. So yeah, that's where I got to in terms of my sort of PhD. And then I guess, where did it take me? Pamela was talking about the Internet of Things. I'm not sure how familiar people are with the Internet of Things or that phrase or what we do, but does anyone know what that is? It's not a smart meter? No?
It's a heating controller.
It's a heating controller. It's a thermostat. So doing some work at British Gas at the moment, and I'll talk about how we've been harnessing information and be using bits of work from my PhD to put that into the product. But if you look at that, it's pretty functional. Actually, I think when we did surveys on this, it's one of the hardest bits of kit in your house that people just don't know how to use. You know, these dials, they look like they're intuitive, but they're not. And you put the heating on, it comes on at the wrong time. So we spent a lot of time, and we thought, there's two things we thought. Actually, could we make this ergonomically better? And secondly, could we make it a desirable feature that someone wants to have in their home? So it's a bit of an ugly bit of plastic. So we worked with designers, and they came up with, what would it look like? How would it feel? How do people want to interact with this device? And what we've done, we've come up with I'm not sure if people are aware of Hive. I'm not sure if people have come across Hive or have Hive at all. But effectively, the cornerstone of it is this thermostat, new thermostat. So it looks nice, it says beautiful meets clever, but you have an app. So you have a mobile app with that, and so now I can turn on my heating from here. So if I leave the house and I think, you know what, I forgot to put the heating off, I can switch it off. I can schedule things to come on or off at different times. It's got a frost protect setting so that when the house gets to a certain temperature, it just puts on the heating a little bit just to make sure that the pipes don't freeze. So this is, I guess, being able to use smartphones and devices to control things in your home. And at Connected Homes within British Gas, we think that's definitely where things are going. And I think we've gone from the thermostat to other products as well. So we've got things like smart plugs. I'm not sure if people have come across smart plugs. So these are basically devices you put in. I've got a lamp connected to my smart plug. So if I'm late home from work, I can switch the lamp on the way home or in the office. So it makes it look like someone's at home. So a bit of a security feature. Some people, if you've got hair straighteners or hair curlers, I don't need anything like hair curlers or hair straighteners. But some people leave them on in their homes sometimes. You run out of the house, you think, oh, it's that moment where you think, you've got on the bus or you're in the car and you're thinking, you know what? One, did I lock the front door? Or did I switch off the iron? Or did I switch off the hair straighteners? Again, we think there's a use case that says, actually, if you're able to go, let me check, I did, and actually be able to switch it off. It's quite useful. So we've embarked on a whole range of different Internet of Things products now. So we've got smart plugs, as I've mentioned. We've got the thermostat. We've got door sensors. We've got motion sensors. We're looking at doing cameras. We're looking at doing audio devices so that they can pick up sound in homes. There's a whole range of different things we're about to sort of bring out. And again, in keep with trying to do it in a nice, stylistic, elegant way, the design of the app is key, so it has to be easy to use. So this might be my home. Is my garage door closed? Actually, we're also looking at things like, they're quite big in the States, not so big in the UK at the moment, but electronic door locks as well. So you can sort of let people in or give people access to your home. So it could be doors, it could be lights upstairs, downstairs. You could have a button so that when you leave the house, you switch it and it takes everything down. Energy conserving. There's a whole range of things that we're looking to do. And I guess the reason why I evangelize a little bit about Hive and Connected Homes is I think this company has done things in the right way. So often in big corporates like British Gas, to build innovative products, it's quite difficult because you've got the old structure, the old ways of doing things, a lot of inertia. Use different development methodologies. In Hive and Connected Homes, we use Agile. A lot of companies are still adopt a waterfall approach. And the sort of working environment's great because it's cross-functional teams. And actually, these are the real people in our offices. They've obviously chosen the model-looking types of employees, but this is the offices that way we work. This is how we work, very collaborative, very open plan. And I guess in terms of just going into a bit of detail in terms of how we work in terms of product development, the customer is very much at the heart of everything that we do. So all the work that we do is very much centered on getting the product out there, getting it into customers' hands, doing customer labs, iterating around that, making sure the customers like it, what they like about it, what don't they like about it. And then in terms of the sort of methodology of coding and developing, it's all about failing fast. So get something out there. It's good to get feedback that it doesn't work or X is wrong, Y is wrong, so you can change it. So I wouldn't go so far as to say that we celebrate failure, but we don't frown upon it at Connected Homes at all. We say, look, encourage people to sort of push the boundaries a bit, fail fast and learn fast, effectively. So I've got sort of two sort of final bits of what I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I guess the first bit is around advice, and in two parts really. And again, you can sort of take it and leave it. Maybe even give me some advice in terms of, you see my journey a little bit now as well. But in terms of the PhD, people often say to you, when you are the experts of your PhD, you know, be confident about that. You know more about it than probably anybody else in the world in terms of your narrow subject of your PhD. And people say that, and it never really sunk in. And especially when you go to your Vive or things like that, you have to realise that you know more about this subject than anybody else. So if you can sort of pick that up early on, I think that should give you a lot of confidence moving forwards. I think in terms of writing up, people have give you different opinions about writing up and writing or writing for conferences or papers. Some people say, oh, it's a great experience, I love writing. Some people say it's the worst, I hate it. And I guess my experience was, most of the times it was quite difficult. It's tough. I just think you have to suck it up, get on with it. Some people would say, doing your data collection and your data work or your analysis, it's a bit like brushing away dirt from a fossil and you're going to uncover all these gems. It wasn't quite like that for me. It was more like, I guess, hacking ice from a freezer and trying to get some frozen peas out. That's probably more my experience of it. It's quite tough. But again, I think you just have to suck it up. You could take years to write up, and some people, I think it's the old adage of, if you want something done quickly, give it to a busy person. So there is something about just getting your head down and getting on with it, I think. This is not tough love, but I'm trying to say my experience is, when given that advice to me, that helped me sort of move on and get on with my PhD quite quickly. But try and enjoy it as well. I mean, I really enjoyed getting out to the conferences. I really enjoyed speaking about my subject. And I have taken it into my work. And it's really weird that, you know, that experience where maybe you buy a new pair of shoes or you buy a bag and you think, oh, this is no one else has got this bag. All these trainers or these shoes, no one else has got them, they're great. And then you walk around and you start to see, actually, no, someone else has got that bag, or that new car. Actually, yeah, you tend to see that same car or that new bag, that loads of people have got them. For me, it's a similar thing with my PhD. I thought, actually, my PhD is quite narrow, it's got a small application. But the more and more you look around, there's lots of ways in which the work that you're doing can be applied. And I think, for me, it opens up a whole raft of areas that you can sort of go into. I guess in terms of what you want to do with your PhD, some people want to just chase the money, I guess, and think, well, what can I do? Can I just get the biggest, best job out there? Some people want to stay in academia and research. My old boss pulled this together in terms of what people earn in terms of in the sort of product development area, whether it's marketing or tech, or and these scales go up in sort of 20s of thousands, really. So if you're really chasing the money, you probably want to be a data scientist or data engineer. That's definitely where the big bucks tend to be these days. But there are a number of really exciting and useful roles. And I think it just depends on your temperament, depends on maybe what you've done in your subjects. From product managers, or if you maybe more UX side, user interface and coding. Again, data scientists, data engineers. I mean, that is the big thing these days, or more front end development or Scrum mastering. But I do think that you just have to go where your passion leads you, and work in an environment that really sort of chimes with you. And this is a picture from where we work in Connected Homes. And the only last bit of advice is I wouldn't follow the trends. And I've seen in your a number of people saying they're doing, I think this term here. I've stolen this slide from a guy called Jim Manning, who's one of my colleagues that I work with. And you sort of hear these trends, and again, you guys are super smart, so you'll probably be able to sort of unpick and understand what these things really, really mean. But just be careful about following some of the trends, really. Just the final bit, really, of what I'm sort of looking at. I think if I look to the future, what's happening, especially in the Internet of thing space that I think is quite exciting, quite interesting. The whole aspect of things going real time. So all the devices I spoke to you about in terms of the thermostats, smart plugs, sensors. I mean, there's so many events that we sort of pick up on our network, and trying to decode that and make sense of that. It's quite amazing. Could anyone tell me what you think is going on here? What do you think? Any idea of what that could be? Wow, how did you do? It's a bit like you sort of can see the matrix there. You can sort of see what's happening behind that. But it's exactly that. It's basically the energy usage of various appliances and things in the home. And you look at that, and we're able to sort of pick out patterns. So if you take something like a fridge, that tends to have a usage pattern, which is it gets something down, I guess, to the right temperature, stays there, and then sometimes you hear the fridge, it sort of kicks in again, powers back up. So you can actually spot these things. Again, it gets quite geeky, I guess, but oven patterns tend to be a bit more like this. So you fire the oven up to the right temperature, and it stays. The most of the power is actually getting it up to that high spot, and then less power, and then you sort of maintain it, I guess. Washing machines, again, fast cycles, those sorts of things. But why is any of that useful? So in terms, can I say this? You guys are quite discreet, aren't you? You're not going to sort of spill the beans on any of the consumer secrets we've got, corporate secrets that we've got. But we are looking at something in the area of assisted living at the moment. So how do you know that your loved ones are okay, for example? I'm not sure if people have got elderly relatives that maybe live on their own. How do you know that they're okay? I guess it's back to that thing where it's a survey question. Do you ask people, are you okay? Sometimes it could be too late, they may not even tell you the right answer. So one of the things we're looking at is kettles, funnily enough, are a good indication of how healthy and well-being for people, especially elderly people. So if we're able to spot when the kettle goes on and at what time, it's probably quite a good indication of whether there's activity in the house, one, and whether someone's moving around and someone's well enough to make themselves a cup of tea. So we're looking at an application whereby if you can sort of feed that through to carers or loved ones, and if you know, oh, granny, yeah, kettle's gone in the morning, fantastic, it could be a useful bit of information. Also, if it goes on at night, you might think, actually, yeah, why is granny put the kettle on at night? It could be an indication of something else, could be early onset Alzheimer's, various. And these things have to be sort of, I mean, they're in very early stages, so it's not something we're about to launch, but it's something we're definitely thinking about. But yes, being able to disaggregate that information and work out what's happening is really, really powerful moving forward. And doing it in real time is really, really helpful. Pam talked about smart meters, so we've got a massive amount. British Gas are pushing smart meters quite heavily. So I think the government directives by 2020, most houses should have smart meters. British Gas is leading the charge in that sense. And what that helps us do, it helps us again disaggregate what's happening in people's bills. It helps you. We've got something called the mileage report, which shows you how much usage you have in your house, what the cost of that is. Also, how much do I spend on various things? What do I spend compared to similar properties? How can I spend less? So again, trying to put the empowerment back in the customer's hands. I mean, the utility companies get a really bad press about their prices and they're being pretty shitty with their customers. And again, BG is trying to get back on that trust agenda by saying, actually, you know what, we can make this information available to you. If you want to switch to a different tariff, you could do that. And providing that information. I think I've done a lot of talking, so I think that's probably where I'll try and bring it to a close.